So today we're looking at War and Peace Part 3, and this is where I presume that the Battle of Borodino is gonna take place. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I imagine this is gonna be like, I was impressed by Part 1's battles, which weren't very long in the grand scheme of things, but they were they were great in terms of scale. So I'm only imagining that Sergei has just saved up the budget at all the really big moments for this, because like, how could you not? It's probably the most important battle for the Russians, right, throughout the Napoleonic Wars. So I'd imagine they want to do that justice. Yeah, so I think that from some comments I got is that according to the behind the scenes productions of this movie, the director actually like got Soviet soldiers to be all the soldiers in this movie. A few thousand, and like, man, does he put it to use? Cause just look at this scale, man. He really nails just the scale of how big an army should look. And you know, it's so many real people. That's the thing that's impressive. Nowadays, we'd probably just CGI a lot. But it's just something so much more impressive about knowing there's just that many guys there, you know? I don't know, it's just so cool to me. Wow, he's dying.
Позовите Андрюшу.
Я от него получила письмо.
Где же он?
В армии, батюшка, в Смоленске.
Oh my goodness, so Andrei's gonna fight. Like, last time we saw him, he was, obviously heartbroken after what happened with the whole Natasha situation. So now, I guess he's going back to fighting. I'm not sure what his state of mind is, but yeah, his dad, Nikolai's, like, dying right now.
Я тебя с Аустерлица помню. Помню. Со знаменем помню.
Yeah, so far there seems to be a lot of, like, respect between Kutuzov and Andrei, as, you know, for any fault that Andrei has, he is really brave, you know, like with Austerlitz and whatnot, even being back here. So yeah, it'll be interesting, because I guess he's gonna fight in the Battle of Borodino, you know.
Пение и время. И взял крепостей больше, чем Каменской. И лошадиное мясо турок есть заставил. Дай срок. И французы тоже будут. Верь моему слову.
Yeah. And boy was he right, because yeah, the French and their this is a disaster for the French. Like, it's amazing how Napoleon walked in Russia with, you know, 600,000 men, the greatest army at the time ever assembled, and he walks out with like less than 100,000, a complete disaster. And at the end, you know, basically has to run from Kutuzov and the Russians. So yeah, again, like, it really is, like, just a complete disaster for the French, but a victory for the Russians, you know?
Помни, что я всей душой несу с тобой твою потерю. И что я тебе не светлейший, не князь, не главнокомандующий, а я тебе отец.
That was really nice. That was sweet.
Потребности жертвы и страдания при сознании общего несчастья неотразимо привлекали Пьера к предстоящему сражению.
Позволь.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Pierre's gonna fight, because he already just expressed interest in fighting and being there.
Матушку несут, заступницу.
Иверскую, смоленскую матушку.
Yeah, they brought holy symbols. I think it's kind of to demonstrate just how serious this event is, you know, with Napoleon and his army being there. That they even brought out, like, you know, these holy symbols, and like you kind of see the importance of the faith among the Russians at this time, and you know, like just how dire they need to win against Napoleon. Yeah, like religion obviously is an important aspect, especially back then in human society. And it's been kind of, I find in this part more than the others, it's more prevalent. I guess it's kind of like that idea. I mean, granted, most people at this time in the world were Catholic religious, you know. But I think it also goes to show that, like, often when people of faith are hard pressed, you see more prayer, right? More devotion, I think, in times of hardship than in times of peace. And I think this part has been showing more of the religion aspect of that, as the Russian people, you see it more in the forefront of the prayer, the singing, the praise. I don't know, I just like it, it's a really moving scene and example being shown, you know? Again, the site is just moving, you know? And powerful. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's just a powerful, moving scene. You know, as the people of Russia are unified for one cause, and that's defend their homeland from the French.
Сложатся новые условия жизни, и я не буду знать про них, и меня не будет. Никогда больше не будет.
Yeah, I've been wondering what Andre's mental state is after what happened last time. And yeah, he seems at least, like, he seems sure that he's about to die. I hope not, but like, again, he's not doing really well in life, huh? His dad died. He has like no, you know, I mean, he has his sister, and obviously, but like, what I mean is he doesn't seem to, you know, like, he seems really down on his luck, I think is what I'm trying to say. So I'm almost wondering if he's reverted back to his, like, Death Seeker, life is meaningless way, you know, that he had at the end of the first part. Andre has kind of been a character who I think I have found probably the most, I've been the most engaged with Andre in his arc, as he's kind of going through, I guess, a journey of growth, and I guess just seeking something, though I'm not even sure he fully understands what he's seeking, but I guess more. I don't know, I just find his arc to be the most interesting. It's given me the most time to, like, kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't know, a lot of introspection, I think. And, I don't know, I think he might be my favorite character so far. I find his arc and his thoughts to be the most, I guess, deep and thoughtful. You know, not to say no one else isn't, it's just I find his the most. And his outlook, how it changes and evolves. Overall, I've just been... I would say Andre's probably my favorite character, you know?
Успех никогда не зависел и не будет зависеть ни от позиции, ни от вооружения, ни даже от числа. Уж меньше всего от позиции.
От чего же?
От того чувства, которое есть во мне, в нем, в каждом солдате. Отчего мы под Аустерлицем проиграли сражение? Позиция? Все это вздор, ничего этого нет. А мне зачем там было драться? Поскорее хотелось уйти с поля сражения. Что нам предстоит завтра? Для меня на завтра вот что.
I think what Andre is talking about is morale. He's like, oh, positions and weapons and manpower isn't the most important. He seems to be talking about that feeling or the rightness of fighting. And I think it's kind of like I'm tying it into morale, which oftentimes in war can prove to be kind of like an underrated but crucial aspect, because we see with low morale, breaks happen, the will to fight is just... We've seen it a lot in this channel. So I think I'm putting the word morale to what he's just saying, and obviously there's no greater morale boost than defending your, you know, your nation, your country, and obviously defending Moscow from the advancing French. And obviously the cause has united everyone to it. So, like, yeah, this is like... You can kind of see, like, with how the way things happen in Borodino, the resolve. It is called the bloodiest day of the Napoleonic Wars, and you can see why, because, like, the Russian resolve was peaked there, and they would do anything to prevent Napoleon from taking Moscow, you know?
100-тысячная русская. И 100-тысячная французская.
Yeah, and the numbers were very even in this battle, because, like, Napoleon, despite walking in with 600,000 men, I have to say, I have to give props to just the way things happen. Like, the Russians not engaging with Napoleon off the bat is the best thing they could have done, because, you know, if they had faced Napoleon when he was much stronger numerically, obviously that would have been a complete disaster, right? So them using scorched earth policy and going deeper into Russian territory, in conjunction with Napoleon, with disease and logistic issues plaguing Napoleon's camp, just allowed him to lose so many men as he's marching to Moscow. He lost the majority of his army just getting to Moscow. You know, we talk about the retreat, but it was him getting there, like the heat, the disease, the supply issues, and also the Russians using scorched earth and essentially luring Napoleon deeper. Like, it really is overall just great, you know, them not engaging with Napoleon off the bat. They only engaged with him now because obviously Moscow was on the line. Like, you had to fight, right? You couldn't just let Napoleon take it. But still, it really worked out at the end. Napoleon kind of, you know, proved that that great army he had, he couldn't really manage it. Like, he lost his mobility, his speed, and just the management of it wasn't the best. So yeah, it really was just a overall great move to kind of lure Napoleon deeper into Russian territory and not engage with him right away, because now look, it's just even, like, for numerically, you know.
А не любезность, а самое гадкое дело в жизни. И надо понимать, это не играть в войну. Надо принимать строго и серьезно эту страшную необходимость. Все в этом. Откинуть ложь, и война так война, а не игрушка. Сойдутся, как завтра, на убийство друг друга. Перебьют, перекалечат десятки тысяч людей. А потом будут служить благодарственные молебны за то, что побито много людей, число которых еще прибавляют, и провозглашают победу, полагая, что чем больше побито людей, тем больше заслуга. Тому, кто больше убил народа, дают большую награду. Как Бог оттуда смотрит и слушает их.
Dang. And that's true, though. I think this, you know, obviously we watch a lot of war videos on this channel, and, you know, it's like, you know, cool, we see the glory and, you know, cool campaigns of great leaders, but I think this is, it's best to never forget, yeah, war isn't a game. It really is such an unfortunate thing, you know, with people just killing each other, and you forget just how many, like, normal, innocent people go and die and get maimed, and, you know, we celebrated, like, yeah, who killed the most, who won the most, who had the most casualties, but then you remember these are actual, like, individuals and lives, not statistics, and, you know, it really is just not it's a dreadful situation, war is. And I think this movie definitely helps portray that better, you know, and just tries to bring the realization that, yeah, this sucks, and it's not good. It's, in some ways, despite what we try to do, like, we have rules and conduct, and, you know, we try to portray this gentleman-esque war, the myth of the gentleman war, but at the end, war in its core is barbaric, no matter how sophisticated we look or become. Like, war at the end is just humans killing humans, you know? Sometimes for, you know, good causes, such as defense, like in this case, and other times just for, like, a lot of times bad ones, but at the end it's still just killing, you know? I don't know, I think this film series so far has just done a really good job of just portraying, you know, the philosophy of war, and, like, what is it for, why do we fight, and just the effects it has on people as individuals, and, you know, I don't know, I think it's really interesting. You know, I think all good war movies do that. I find that all the best war movies never glorify war. At least the ones that I've seen, you know, they never like, oh, this is awesome. Like, it's more like, man, what a waste, you know, of human life. And, again, like I said, we watch a lot of war videos. We've seen Kings and Generals, Epic History, like the Napoleonic Wars, and, you know, so many campaigns from great people, and it's cool to watch and be like, yeah, that's awesome, look at how they rock, look at how amazing Caesar was in the battlefield, and then you just kind of like, I think it's good to just, you know, especially for myself, to remind myself, like, you know, there's a lot of suffering, and like I said before, war, despite how advanced or sophisticated we try to make it, I think will always in its core sort of be somewhat barbaric in terms of just the idea that we're killing each other, and at times it can bring out just the worst in humans, you know, like with this war crimes that take place, you know, with any raping or looting or just, you know, suffering is gonna be caused. So I don't know, I think this movie does a good job of just showing that, yeah, war ain't fun, you know, and it ain't great at the end of the day.
Ах, душа моя, последнее время мне стало тяжело жить. Ну да ненадолго.
I think Andre wants to die. He's talking a lot about, like, you know, like like tomorrow I'll be gone, sort of like, and now he's opening up, he's fighting life unbearable. I think Andre literally wants to die now. I think he's seeking death. At least that's the reading I'm getting now. I think like life has kind of been hard for the guy. He's been through a lot. I think he wants to die. And that's kind of like concerning, you know? Again, the shots in this film are just amazing. The way the director just shoots scenes, it's like art. You know, it's like literal art brought to life, I feel like paintings of the Napoleonic era. And it's just beautiful the way he shoots. Is it called cinematography or something like that? Again, I'm not a movie guy. Apologies for my ignorance, but I think that's like the idea of shooting scenes and making it have this like good look, and the way he shoots it, just like artistically beautiful, you know? I don't know, I'm like, I'm in awe, because I'm looking like, these things could be like straight up paintings, I feel like sometimes, you know? The logistics of making this are insane. Imagine you have a mess up. Like, you would have to do this all over again with all these thousands of extras. Like, you would have to get it right, like, at least the first time, right? Because the logistics of if you mess up or something goes wrong and you having to try to do this all over again seems incredibly mentally taxing. And the French right here, all overlooking the battle. Again, look at that, just everything looks so grand, you know? My goodness. Dude, Pierre just standing there with his like really nice outfit, his drip, as it were, and just like, I'm gonna watch the battle, is like crazy. I'd be like, get out, like, or at least go to safer, like, I'm kind of like worried. He doesn't say he's fighting, he's just spectating, you know? So, yeah. Insane. Dang. This is probably the closest we can get to actually witnessing a Napoleonic battle. Like, this, I would say that the greatest accomplishment that director, Sergei, achieved with both the Waterloo and this film series, is that this is probably the best, this is probably the closest to time travel we could ever achieve. You know? At least for now, I don't know, this is the closest to watching a Napoleonic battle one can get, I think. And I mean that as the highest compliment, because I think he really brings the era to life in a way no other director has. Look at that. The absolute scale. Look at, oh, that's so cool, the infantry squares fending off the cavalry assault. Oh my gosh, got his leg blown off. Oh my gosh, I'm loving the portrayal of violence. You just see bodies and just dismemberments everywhere, like, insane. I find it interesting that the subtitles are mainly reserved for the Russians when they're speaking Russian, but when we cut to Napoleon's camp and he's speaking, you don't get subtitles. I'm assuming he's speaking French. Like, we don't get any subtitles for what Napoleon is saying, or like what the French are saying, unless the Russian narration speaks translating what he said. I don't know, I find that just really interesting. It's almost like you don't get an insight. I'm not sure if this is just the video I'm looking at right now, and that the YouTube video of this movie isn't translating, but I kind of like that, because it kind of gives off like a foreign perspective. Like, we're privy into what the Russians are saying and they're thinking. Meanwhile, the French are like, you know, almost, I guess I'll use the word alien, in that, you know, foreign. Like, we don't really have insight into them fully, into what they're saying or what they're thinking, because they're at the outside, you know. This is like about Russia, and the French and Napoleon is the enemy. I don't know. Probably might just be this YouTube video, but if it's like, if it rings true to other versions, I think that's a cool, a unique thing, you know? Like, we're almost disconnected from Napoleon and the French, since they're kind of the antagonist of this story. So I guess that makes them less empathetic and sympathetic as a cause. Cinema. Cinema. Unless you know exactly what, unless you can speak French, I don't know what the heck Napoleon is saying, other than he's like just surveying the battle. And like all the marshals assembled here just behind him. You know, again, the martial costumes are some of the coolest ones. I would buy one if I could. A French martial outfit.
Предложить, Ваше Величество, позавтракать. Я надеюсь, что теперь уже я могу поздравить Ваше Величество с победой.
I love that. Like, hey Napoleon, this is the bloodiest day of your entire career. People are dying. There's dismemberment and screaming and bombs everywhere. You want lunch? You know? It's like, you must be hungry after witnessing all this violence. I don't know. I kind of find that funny.
Allez-vous-en!
Yeah, I don't need a translator to know Napoleon told him to piss off. But, you know what I really like also? In part 1, when Napoleon was portrayed, Napoleon was always on his white horse. You never really got a look at his face. You always saw either the back of him, or if you did see his, like, you know, the front of his face, it was always at a distance, and he was always on his horse, like, kind of just looking at the battlefield, incredibly calm, almost like he had complete control of the situation. Like, I said in part 1, he was more than just a guy. He was a force of nature, almost like this other thing. He was more than human. And it makes sense, because the War of the Third Coalition, like I've said before, I think is like the peak of Napoleon, where he could do no wrong, where he just kept winning battle after battle. He kept defeating coalitions. He was just at the peak of his game. And then we cut forward to this part, where Napoleon's no longer on his horse. We're seeing a lot more of him close up, and he's like frustrated. He's like, you know, you can see the frustration. He's not in complete control like he used to be. And it makes sense, considering at this point in his career, Napoleon, after the War of the Fourth Coalition, just made so many blunders. There's the Continental System, I think the biggest mistake he ever made, trying to have a trade war with Britain, economic war, that he ultimately proved to be more disastrous to him than in the long run. His invasion of Spain took place, where, as we know, the Peninsula War did not go well for the French at all. And here we have the Russian invasion. The Russian invasion is like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, Napoleon was already racking up mistakes. Things were already kind of starting to show. But this is where it completely broke his military might. And, you know, he never recovered after what happened in Russia. Like, his army was no longer grand as it used to be. And, you know, it really is the event that broke the camel's back. And I like that you see it's arguably Napoleon at his worst. The era from the invasion of Spain all the way to the Russian invasion. Probably Napoleon at making his most mistakes, his most blunders, his most failures. And I kind of like you see that as he's brought down to a more human level. He's no longer the white horse riding, like, force of nature. He's just a guy now. Am I reading too deep? Can you guys tell I'm an English major? Am I reading too deep into this? Is my analysis over the top? But, I don't know. I like to think that this is what it's trying to portray. Napoleon as a flawed human. You know? And not a force of nature who can do no wrong. You know what I find interesting is that Pierre, who has been probably the kindest, most gentle soul of the entire thing, is witnessing all this. And Pierre, who had a lot of optimism, right? Especially when, like, in part 1, when Andre returned after the Battle of Austerlitz, he was, like, incredibly, like, more pessimistic of life. And, you know, Pierre was his anchor, like, no, life is worth living, you know, you have to live for others, not just yourself. And now we're here at this battle, which, in terms of bloodshed, exceeds Austerlitz. And Pierre is watching this. And you have to imagine, like, witnessing the worst, some of the worst parts of humanity, the death, the suffering, would have a, well, I'm wondering if it's gonna have a profound effect on Pierre, like it did with Andre, and if Pierre's, like, gentleness will be affected, or his purity, because he's witnessing, this is quite the battle to witness, huh? Like I said, the bloodiest day of the Napoleonic Wars. Just like, this is quite the battle. I'm like, I don't know. I imagine he would be incredibly affected by this, right? Holy crap. Yeah, so this is Brad Gadian? I know I didn't pronounce that right, but dang, even he seems injured now.
Полк князя Андрея был в резервах.
Okay, so Andre's in reserves. I was like wondering where he was in this entire fight. Holy crap.
Господин полковник! Ложись!
Неужели это смерть? Я не могу. Я не хочу.
Oh.
Я люблю жизнь! Люблю эту траву, землю, воздух!
This is honestly one of the best battle scenes I've ever seen in my life. This might be probably the greatest battle scene I've ever seen in my life, in any movie. Dang, even Pierre's freaking down. The chaoticness that it's capturing is just... Even like the blood-curdling screams. Oh my god. He's fighting a French soldier right now. My god. I don't even know what I can say. I feel like I'm just being repetitive, but man. Everything about this scale is just amazing. I love seeing the infantry squares, and just, it captures the chaos, I think, like, it's revving up the chaos that I feel like the film is capturing so well. Just how, like, yeah, violent and brutal war is, especially this battle in particular. Like, it's really living up to why you see this could be, like, the bloodiest day of the Napoleonic Wars. Like, look at this, it's like art. Like, it's probably the closest we could ever get to just witnessing this in real time, you know? Oh. Oh my god, this aerial view. Dude, that was amazing. And like the panning shot, like they're showing all of this in one panning shot. Like the coordination is not to be underestimated. Like imagine you messed up and having to try to replicate this again, like that. Oh my gosh, I'm wondering how many takes did that happen, because that, oh my gosh, dude, like this is some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen in my life.
Все пункты нашей позиции в руках неприятеля. И отбить нечем, потому что войск нет. Они бегут. Нет возможности остановить их.
Как смеете вы, милостивый государь, говорить это мне? Извольте ехать к генералу Барклаю и передать ему на завтра мое непременное намерение атаковать неприятеля. Завтра погоним его из нашей священной земли русской.
Dang, man. Yeah, it's the importance of this battle, again, defending Moscow and stuff, like, hearing, you know, that the French are gaining is just a lot, because he's putting it all on the line, Kutuzov, right now for this. I mean, they all are, but you know.
Стали одно за другим приходить известия о потерях неслыханных, о потере половины армии, и новое сражение оказалось физически невозможным.
Again, the amount of people they all lost on both sides, it's insane. To the point it's like, we can't fight again. You know, this was a one-day thing, because of just the amount of carnage and bloodshed that took place. Is that Andre? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was wondering, like, he was next to a cannon, but... Is he gonna die right now? Oh my god. They have the lullaby of his mom singing to him, like... Oh wait, that's the dude who Natasha cheated on him. Oh my gosh. It's the aftermath. Like, look at just all the corpses littered around. Like, I think the ugliest sight probably in the world is the aftermath of a great battle, where you just see, like, all the death. And you might even wonder, what was it all for, you know? Like, that thought has to... Oh, and there's Napoleon inspecting.
Не на один только этот час и день были помрачены ум и совесть этого человека, тяжелее всех других участников этого дела, носившего на себе всю тяжесть совершавшегося. Но и никогда до конца жизни своей не мог понимать он ни добра, ни красоты, ни истины, ни значения своих поступков, которые были слишком противоположны добру и правде, слишком далеки от всего человеческого для того, чтобы он мог понимать их значение. Он не мог отречься от своих поступков, восхваляемых половиной света, и потому должен был отречься от правды и добра и всего человеческого.
Yeah, that Napoleon is just like a, you know, Napoleon's called a lot of things, you know, a monster, and definitely I think where you're definitely, what part of the world you're from, you might view Napoleon very differently, right? Like, either as a great hero or the most vile of villains, and obviously, like, yeah, he is to be blamed for this. Like, the whole thing, like, with the Spanish, I said the Peninsula War, and even this, like, all falls on Napoleon. And, he's responsible for a lot of suffering you know? Not everything, like, throughout the Napoleonic Wars, but he definitely, you know, is responsible. And I think the two greatest events, like the Peninsula War and this, all fall on his shoulders, and he is definitely, you know, like, I can see a lot why a lot of people would hate the guy. And yeah, just imagine, like, look at this, witnessing this. Even it must be even worse in real life when you see something like this. Like, I imagine a lot more blood and dismembered bodies and yeah, I don't know how one could, like, stomach that, you know?
Победа нравственная, та, которая убеждает противника в нравственном превосходстве своего врага и в своем бессилии, была одержана русскими под Бородиным. Прямым следствием Бородинского сражения было беспричинное бегство Наполеона из Москвы, погибель 500-тысячного нашествия и погибель наполеоновской Франции, на которую в первый раз под Бородиным была наложена рука сильнейшего духом противника.
That was beautiful. And you know, I've heard debates about who won the Battle of Borodino, you know. And it is something you can debate, like, did Napoleon win, did the Russians win? At the moment, it looks like a Pyrrhic victory for Napoleon, you know. He got Moscow, which was the objective, though the real objective was to get the Russians to surrender, which they didn't. Tsar Alexander did not make peace with him, even after taking Moscow. So at the heat of the moment, a Pyrrhic victory for the French for taking Moscow. But in the long term, really a defeat, the entire thing, the entire campaign for Napoleon. He lost his great army, his military might. He couldn't, you know, sure, he got Moscow, but it was burned down, so he didn't really have a chance to enjoy it, and he had to retreat. So in the end, the Russians won, you know, and even the moral superiority, since Napoleon was more of the aggressor of this war. So yeah.